Thanks for joining us today, guys. Today we are joined by Kevin Hodes, and excited for him to share a little bit about his story. We'll just get a glimpse into the man and the myth that is Kevin, but really excited for this conversation. So, Kevin, you mind introducing yourself to the audience and giving a little bit of your background?
Of course. Well, Liam, thanks so much for having me on your show. I'm definitely honored, and I apologize for the long time of trying to corner me to get me on your show. You never know what's going to happen here at the Swipe It headquarters. And of course, if people Google me, they'll find out all the stuff I've got my hands in. But basically, for over 2 decades, I've been bringing honesty and integrity to the slimy world of credit card processing. And there's a lot of people that jump into our business and they see the allure of making a lot of money with people with credit cards, but they don't understand all the things that need to be done on the backside and the small profit margins. But over the past 2 decades, I processed billions and billions and billions worth of credit cards, and it's all through referral only. So people that know us have found us through someone, maybe someone on your podcast might have an interest, and they might say, "Hey, I saw your podcast that you were on with Ilium," or wherever they might have seen it. And I would like to maybe talk to you about our business. I will start with the first thing of being, are you new in business? And I will tell them, unfortunately, we don't deal with new business owners. And we want them to be successful, but they are typically shopping for credit card processing like they're shopping at Walmart. And that is the biggest mistake that most business owners do. And they are trying to find and cut corners because they don't have enough capital, as you know, to start a business. And unfortunately, they wind up setting themselves up for failure. But of course, the credit card processing industry I fell into, and I surely didn't go to college to be the credit card guy, but I do love and have a incredible amount of passion for helping others.
What'd you want to do coming out of college or coming out of being a kid? It sounds like you fell into credit card processing, so would love to hear that. But kind of where were your passions?
Yep. I was 14 years old working at a place in upstate New York called Mohonk Mountain House. And Mohonk is a word that is an Indian word, and it means lake in the sky. And it was a resort that was created by these two individuals. They were twin brothers, the Smiley brothers. I can't believe I'm remembering all this. I haven't actually talked this far back in a long time, but it was my first job as a busboy. And like Stephen King was, back in it was the mid to late 80s. He would do a big event there every year. And it was, stars that were coming there. I met the guy that created the Betty Boop caricature. And I was dating this girl at the time, and she loved Betty Boop, and I had him create a character for her. Okay, I can't even say the word. And I remember giving to her, and all these years later, can you imagine how much that might have been worth if I had just kept that? But I don't know. Sometimes you do things and you're not
I take it
realizing what
that relationship didn't last.
No, it was pretty short lived. I'm trying to remember. I don't remember her name. I'm sure some of my friends from high school may have remembered what her name was or something, but that was food service. So it kind of gave me the ability to see behind the scenes of how food service works. And I kind of started liking the chefing business. And that's what I went to school for. I wound up working 4 jobs to put myself through college. And I worked at McDonald's. I worked at a place in upstate New York called Plaza Pizza for the Savona family, which is now one of my clients, which is, full circle kind of craziness. And I worked at a place called the Chateau on the nights and the weekends. And then I was mowing lawns. My father was a prison guard working at a maximum security prison in Ellenville, New York called Napanoch Prison. And we, obviously my parents were civil servants, so we didn't make a lot of money. So if I wanted to go to college to become a chef, I had to obviously find the money myself. They helped what they could, but, I wanted to be a chef, and I had grandeur ideas of being, multiple location restaurants, all kinds of stuff, right? And, as you start your journey, you don't realize through that journey some other things that come into place. And through that journey, I fell into the yachting industry, and I was a personal chef to some of the wealthiest men in the world on their private yachts. So I wound up learning an incredible amount of information about business, investments, and how to handle certain aspects of business. And when you're on a big private yacht and there's no place to go, and you're going from, Key West to Fort Lauderdale, or Fort Lauderdale to the Bahamas, or wherever you may be going, you get an opportunity to be around really smart people, or at least you think they're smart, right? But they were definitely smarter than me, for sure, because at that time I was working for them. But I learned so much that there was a woman that started working on the boat, and then she and I got together, and now we've been married since 1997. So I
Very cool.
eventually jumped ship, and then I wound up getting out of the food business, did some business consulting, and then fell into the crazy world of credit card processing in the Colorado area, and then came here to Texas 20 years ago and started the company all over completely, by myself, working. I didn't know anybody except one person when I came here. And then 20 years later, here I am. 20 years, I say, because I've been doing this I've been in the business since 1999. I've been my own since 2001.
Very cool.
That's kind of that quick journey.
Yeah.
New York, traveling, yachts. And then, literally when you work on private yachts, the only thing you own is the shirt on your back. So I literally owned a Harley, and that was it. And then I was homeless at that point. But there was a period of time when I was technically actually homeless, and I did live in my car for a short period of time because I didn't want to go home to my parents back upstate New York, knowing that there was no future for me there. So I had to make some real strange choices to further my career into, and falling into the yachting world and the food service. It was just an interesting process, and eventually we'll make a movie of that, the life story kind of thing.
Very cool. Yeah, circuitous journey, right? But it sounds like figuring out ways to solve the challenges that were in front of you, very entrepreneurial, whether you knew it at the time or not, right? In terms of
I had
trying
no
to
idea.
figure out what step comes next, right? So
Yeah.
you fall into credit card processing, you do well, you move, start your own company. Once you are in the company with Swipe It and you start experiencing success, cash is coming in. You don't have to worry so much about, you don't have to worry about staying in your car. You've got roof over the head, food on the table. What was your strategic framework in terms of how to apply that profitability as it was coming in the door?
Great question, Liam. And one of the things that I've learned was, in the beginning, was to reinvest money back into the business to help it grow, grow, grow. And one of the things I eliminated that made things so much easier was, back in the day, is the credit card actual terminals or application fees. There just was no cost for that for our clients. So even over the years, I might have a client. We still have the first customer I ever wrote. I was actually at his location earlier this week. I was in the vicinity and stopped by to see them. And, over the years, technology has advanced, compliance things have advanced. They still use a credit card machine, there's nothing wrong with that. I like being able to offer these items to these people at no cost. So as they have progressed in their business, the technology changed. So we've probably changed out, I don't know, 15 credit card machines over the years. Maybe some broke. We had to upgrade. We had to add certain things. Contactless has come around. Chip technology has come around. So we're on the route of taking care of people, and that's why our clients stay with us. I have one of the lowest attrition rates in the country, and we're all about volume. So we take care of clients from, smaller merchants. I say smaller, 30, 40, 50,000 per month in revenue, to millions per month in revenues. That's how we are evolved over all this time frame. But that's what separates a lot of the time us from everyone else. And it was very difficult in the beginning because, when you're providing equipment at no cost and you're bringing on clients pretty quickly, you're now trying to keep reinvesting back into the business. And the reinvestment just came from constantly saying, I'm never going to go back to the food business. While I always told my wife, I always said, listen, if everything fails, we can always go back to food service. I was very good in the food service business, obviously working on private yachts. I was in Southern Living magazine through one of the families that we worked with. They had connections, and it was really cool to be able to, learn from them, apply, and then reinvest, and then fruits of the labor come around, having the ability to save a little coin, have some toys, but get
What
back to the
drove the
community.
decision to give hardware at no cost to the clients? Was that a differentiator that helped establish market share for you? What was the driving factor there?
Yeah, that's another great question. I looked at the terminals as a crutch, because what would happen is the guy that gets into the business in the beginning works for these companies that have these boiler rooms, and the boiler rooms are setting up the appointments for people that don't know anything about their financial picture, and they're assessing and their needs based upon their need to sell a credit card machine or apply a solution that is not in the best interest of the client. And I wanted to eliminate that and say, we're going to do this based upon your revenues that you're going to be processing, instead of me wanting to make an upfront commission. So I wanted to remove the upfront commission and basically work on, kind of probably like the way you work on, taking care of clients based upon the volume of the financial picture that they have, right? Wouldn't that be a better way to explain that?
For sure. Right. Much better than saying I'm going to take 1% and hope to get you a return, right? Like that doesn't
Exactly.
make sense to me.
Yeah. Or you could try the Bernie Madoff way.
Yeah. In which case I'd be at the prison that your father was at real quick.
That's correct.
Yeah. So you reinvested a lot back into the business. I'm sure at some point you hit a point where your revenues and profits were outstripping what you had to put back into the business. What did you decide to do then?
As a individual that loves to help people, I just kind of fell into, an organization that was helping families of fallen soldiers through one of my clients. And I felt that I could be able to assist them through my connections and help them grow their organization. So I started doing that. One thing people always say, like, my son's doing this thing about entrepreneurship. And this past Sunday, he goes, Dad, I need to ask you some questions. And I said, okay, what is it? And he explained what he was doing, and he interviewed me for his entrepreneurial class. And I think he found out some things about me he didn't know. And I've told him some of the things that were here. But the entrepreneurial lifestyle is different than, you know, having a job. And you need a structure that's going to get you the ability to reinvest funds back into things, find a way, a path that's going to be a smart path. I explain to people that you always want to have an ability to bring capital. People, they start a business and they never plan on actually having the ability to look into the future. They just think they turn the light on and everybody shows up. And the world doesn't work that way. You've got to be unique in what you do and the entrepreneurial life. But when I actually started out with figuring out where I wanted to go with some success, was I my son, he says, when did you know you were successful? And I said, define success. And he didn't know what to mean by that. Most people define success by having some sort of income or flashy things. When I moved here to Texas, and this is a long, crazy way to get back to where, but follow me here. When I first moved here to Texas, I pulled up, I had a 1997 C230 Mercedes. It was the first Mercedes I ever had. And I remember looking around going, oh my God, everybody's got Mercedes here. But I actually had the affordability to own that Mercedes. There's so many people that fake it till they make it. And I've run into those even in the exotic car world, where you'll see somebody that has an exotic car and they're just trying to be flashy with it to gain clients. And they really are just faking it till they make it. And you see them, they fall off. And it's really sad because they probably have put themselves in a terrible financial position, and it's going to affect their family and their children and things of that nature. But, going back around to success, when my son said, hey, how did you know you were successful? And I said, define success. So people say success is money, right? Well, I don't believe in my situation. What my idea of success was when I had the ability to have my wife home instead of at a job working. That to me was what my goal was. So in 2004, 5, we had the ability for her to stop working at a job, and we had the financial mean for her to be home. And that to me was the most important part of my entire life of what I called success. Everything else from there was going to give me the ability to help others and drive the business further higher up than I could have ever thought well, I'm here talking to you now. You found me, right?
Did what was your view of success when you were in the food service on the yachts? Was it the same as kind of what you just articulated, or did that change over time for you?
Oh, wow. That's a really good question. Nobody's asked it in that way. And I bet that I've always known, obviously, with connections and the ability to network, I was always very good at that at a young age. I've always known that somehow or another that was going to equate to help me have the financial means to be in a place that I've never thought I'd ever get to. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So, I mean, while you network and you schmooze, I mean, I think there's levels of success and schmoozing and connections and referrals that just keep happening bigger and bigger, because when people start figuring out who you are and what you do, they have a different view of how you're doing things with monies from your company or your own success. And for me, I'm fortunate enough to be a 4-time best-selling author that I've co-authored books with Richard Branson and Ivan Meisner and Nito Kubain and Brian Tracy. The first book that I was a co-author was with, if anybody's ever heard of Chicken Soup for the Soul series, but Mr. Jack Canfield, I got the book all framed right here. So I was fortunate enough to co-author a book with Jack Canfield called The Truth in Credit Card Processing. And individuals like this, they don't want to connect with the scammers of the world. They've got their own brand, their own name, right? And so I was ecstatic to have that. And of course, Brian Tracy, I've done his life story on his movie. I've been to his house. We've, had dinner. I, talked to him. And then I co-authored a book with him as well. These books are awesome. And people can find them. They can just Google Kevin Hodes, or they can go to my IMBD page and see the movies that I've been associated with, which have been, those movies have given me Telly's, the Folds of Honor movie. If anybody's heard of Folds of Honor, that is one of the other charities that I support greatly. And I'm friends with Big and Rich. I'm friends with John Rich from Big and Rich. So I said, John, you got to be in the movie. So of course he was in the movie, and I think he made the movie personally. But Lieutenant Colonel Dan Rooney and what he's doing, we went up to Owassa, Oklahoma. We filmed some of the movie there. We had really, if you go and watch the movie, I don't want to ruin it, but there's a lot of really cool country western singers in there, some famous golfers in there, really, really cool stuff. But that one got 2 Emmys. And when you're the executive producer like myself, when the director gets 2 Emmys, you get a half Emmy. So here is what a half Emmy looks like. That is pretty cool. And this was 2020, and the director got his Emmy, but of course my recognition for participation, maybe too much coffee.
Participation. Participation.
So
Yeah.
this is a half Emmy. This is what you get. So in my office here, people always go, "What is that?" And I go, "That's a half Emmy." It's a nice little conversation piece. But
So how does someone go from chef to credit card processing to author and producer? Where did those pieces come in, and how'd you get to that point?
Yeah, so you got great questions, Liam. Here, I love this. I'm going to tell you that I've always felt that my story, if I put it out there, would be incredible. And homelessness, living in a car, struggling, electricity turned off, the whole 9 yards. Even as a child, I've spoken about this in the past, which I don't mind even bringing up here, but I was sexually abused when I lived in Missouri with my mother as a young child by a neighbor. And so like all these things that happen, they have made me, I've been bullied. I'm short guy, so I don't have this huge stature. So I always knew I wanted to succeed. I knew I wanted to overcome, but I've never let anything become a crutch for me. And one of my clients, I was in his office and I'm looking around and he's got this thing up on the wall that was showing that he was at the Grammys. And I go, "How'd you get to the Grammys? How did you show up? I mean, how do you do that kind of stuff?" And then he told me, and I said, "Well, I want to write a book about my life." And he said, "Call this guy." So I called that guy and he goes, "Let's get you on TV and we're going to do this thing with you." And I'm like, "Okay." He goes, "Man, you're really good. Let's get you here." So I went there. And then he goes, "You know what? I'm friends with Jack Canfield. Let's get you in this book." And I'm like, "Okay." And then it leads into the movies and the books and the stuff. And, the connections that I have in that world is really big. And I just continue to keep doing more and more in that world. So I hope that kind of answers your question.
Is there a passion for you in doing those things that's different, that kind of ignites your fire or your inquisitiveness differently than credit card processing, for instance? And do you feel a pull there that makes you want to expand in that area?
Oh yeah. I don't know if you're scrolling through Facebook or Instagram or wherever you're scrolling through, and you ever see those things that have the master class. You ever see the master class stuff?
Yep.
So there's Oprah's done a master class. I think President Bush has recently done a master class. But Chris Voss, have you ever heard of Chris Voss?
I have not.
Chris Voss, we did his life story in a movie, and I'm now connected to Chris Voss because of being part of the movie. And he's done a master class about negotiation when he was in a worldwide basis, because he was an FBI agent and a master negotiator. So he now teaches people how to negotiate properly. So, once you get connected to people like this, you're like, who else can I, work with? Who else can I get connected to? So it creates like, all right, we're going to be doing this one. I have we've already done the movie, and we're going to be doing the movie premiere in Hollywood, actually, in a few weeks. And I got this thing, it's on the wall over, you can't see it, but it's in recognition of my commitment to literacy in America. He gave this to me in January. It's a Literacy Champion Award from John Corcoran. And he's the man that didn't learn to read till he was 48 years old. And he was a professor and a teacher. And a little snippet from the movie, he said that if he had to read anything when he was like in these rooms, like, like they have like a morning, the principal of a school would come in, or a college, whatever it was, I can't remember the specifics, but he said that if the principal said, "Hey, John, can you come up to the blackboard and write down your tools for whatever," I don't know what it was, what he said. He said that he would immediately act like he was going to have a heart attack. He planned it as if he didn't want to ruin the fact that he was not telling the truth about he didn't know how to read, because he knew that he'd probably lose his job, right? How does a professor or a teacher teach people without knowing himself how to read? Well, he did this till he was 48 years old. And he now talks about his dyslexia and how, the process of learning to read helped him to help others. And that, he came clean one day, and he was on Oprah and all these crazy shows many years ago, but we're doing his life story. And so I'm honored to do those kinds of things. And those kinds of things are complete other aspects of being successful in business that transcend to helping others. And I have said over and over, if you're in business and you're not giving something back to your community and or nation in whatever level it is, then you shouldn't be in business, because your customers, your clients, your friends, your families, they're going to figure it out that you're just a taker. And I don't want to work with takers. I want to work with givers. I want to give people the ability to make as much profit that they can make at their business. In the credit card processing side, they obviously know that I'm an expert in my field, but it gives them the ability to know there's no place else they should be, and that profits from our company go back to help others in many other ways. Does that kind of answer that question?
Yeah, and resonates very well
Thank you.
with what I believe and what we do at our company as well. And there's not enough of it out there, unfortunately. There's a lot of takers, particularly when you start making more and more. I think human nature to take more and more instead of give more and more. It's kind of sad, but anyway, I digress. You've experienced a lot of success in a lot of different areas in your career, right? And if you were to go back, right, like what's the single biggest either choice or attribute that took you from, either homeless, in car, or food service into, where you are today or doing the things that you're passionate about?
How did I get transitional to
No,
that?
if you were to distill it down to one thing that helped you be successful or transformed your life or helps you continue to be successful in these new, avenues and verticals, writing books, production, what would that one thing, be that you would distill down, right? So if someone is trying to figure out, great, how do I break through the ceiling? What do I need to focus on? Or what was someone else successful by doing? What would that thing be for you?
Tenacity. Never give up. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to tell people that they can't do it. And obviously, if you haven't planned right, or you haven't got yourself the correct group of people surrounding you, and they are negative as ever, you need to get rid of the negativity first and foremost. Secondly, you need to have the ability to have the drive. And then third, you have to have capital. So if you've got yourself the right team, you've got the right knowledge, and then you've got the ability to never give up, you can be a force to be reckoned with. And the people that are literally listening to those types of principles can super, super succeed. Not just succeed, but super succeed. And I try to tell people, don't do these things, don't do these things, don't do these things. There was a period of time that I used to do some things here in the office, and I had to remove some negativity that was in the office. And unfortunately, those people were removed. And, it created some conflict for me, but I was happy to be able to remove the negativity out of my life so that I could be better for my clients, because the negativity will just eat you alive. You got to be able to feel comfortable in yourself to be able to do the things you need to do for your clients. So find the right team, execute, and never give up.
So you mentioned capital as that third pillar, and I'm sure there's tons of people who are listening who are like, yeah, I'd love more capital, but it's so hard to go get, right? But obviously you came from not having any capital and no connections to having lots of access to it. So how'd you get to that point?
It was days of the electricity being turned off. It was deciding where we were going to put funds for this. It was making gradual changes that would be able to be smarter and be able to make it work. Now, I was never the fake it till you make it guy. we had resources. It just, you had to figure out, where were you going to put those resources? And it really just comes down to who is part of your circle, who is giving you the smarts to make the right decisions. And then you can execute those decisions. And they could be costly. I remember having some agents that worked for me in the past that cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars in a lawsuit. And I wasn't really happy about that, quite honestly. But you you felt like I didn't do anything wrong. I had to let those individuals go because they weren't following the policies and procedures of what I had implemented in the company. And I didn't know they were doing things they shouldn't be doing. And when I found out, I was like, hey, you got to go. I wasn't prepared for them to actually, contact an attorney and create a lawsuit. Now, I lost money on attorneys. I did not lose money on the actual case. The attorneys is what gets you. And that's what people don't know. You could win something, but those attorneys, man, no offense to attorneys, but I have figured out how they work. And they bill you by the hour, right? I mean,
We
that's
got to
their
set up
job,
a call
right?
for that, Kevin. Let's talk about it. Clock started.
Yeah, believe me, I have a few attorneys as well. They're on retainer. I actually have an industry attorney. I mean, in my industry, it's a complex business. It's not just, hey, you got a credit card and you're going to stick it in the machine. There is facts of things that have to be in place to make those industry. The industry itself is not just, hey, I need a merchant account. It just doesn't work like that. So I don't want to go too much into that, but I will tell you that industry attorney is very handy when you need them.
Yeah, for sure. As we're wrapping up, Kevin, I'm sure there's listeners who want to be able to come back and connect with you. What's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, good question. Appreciate the opportunity to be here, Liam. I mean, obviously, you're in the financial world, and the people that are in the financial world themselves, it's not easy to gain new clients, right? But when you do have them, they'll typically tell someone else, they'll tell somebody else. So I appreciate you having the ability to tell your people that are listening about Swipe It and what we do. And if they're interested in actually talking to somebody like myself and they want to talk to me directly, they can contact me at info@swypit.com. That's Swipe It with a Y. And I've got my little business card here. You can kind of see that.
Perfect.
So the number to contact me is 877-379-9748. And my executive assistant kind of will control the schedule, but we're happy to talk to anybody if they're accepting credit cards now. If you're new in business, I'm sorry, we're not taking on new clients. But when you are an established business and you are processing credit cards and are tired of all the pain that you have, we're happy to help you. I have gotten on planes and flown to New Hampshire and Vegas and California and Missouri and Florida, wherever it is, depending on your business, we'll actually come out there and do the installation. We're more of a concierge type business. So you can go to swypit.com and you can check out our website. You can Google me, Kevin Hodes, KevinHodes, or however else that you Google SWYPIT. Hopefully something pops up about us and what we do. But if you're ready to work with an expert in their field, be prepared for us to divulge into what you do. And then we bring our inner circle to help you be even more successful because of the relationships we've built all over the country.
Very cool, Kevin. I appreciate the insights and the dialogue today. I thought it was fascinating, and I know it touched a listener somewhere and changed their life. And so really appreciate that.
Yeah, I do also want to mention, you can also watch our podcast. It's on the Success Network. It's Success Network. And you can Google the Success Network. Obviously, it's on all the places that you're on as well. And wherever all that, I don't even know where it's at. I know the people that put it together are the Emmy award-winning producers that produce my Success Network. It's done right here in my office. And of course, we've got people like Jay Abraham, the master of marketing, who very good friends with. He is on there. Brian Tracy is on that network, and Jack Canfield's on that network. So I'm really honored to be a part of the Success Network. There's a lot of great people that you can learn from in there. You can watch our podcast. You can, you can look up our books. You can learn about the industry and in the Soul of Success, or Performance 360, or Leverage with Brian Tracy. This little, here's the latest book that we did during COVID. Brian Tracy and myself there. But
Very cool.
yeah, good stuff. And you can always find Performance 360, this little book right here. And I'm on there somewhere. Oh yeah, right here. And then you got Mr. Richard Branson. So I co-authored a book with an astronaut.
There you go.
Right, because he's flying around. But anyways,
that's out of this world, Kevin.
It is out of this world. And I could go on all day, but I know we have limited time. So I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm excited to be on your show, Liam.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Kevin. Have a good one.